Hey, yo, Fro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And while you're at it, if you are a Facebook user, check out the Titans of Podcasts and Wrestling fan group, available now on Facebook. All sorts of podcasts, news, rumors, sites, fan pages, all the things you could possibly want in a group on Facebook. And if you are a video game player, wrestling fanatic, just like myself, check out Wrestler Unstoppable, free right now on Facebook. Create your own wrestler, get involved in storylines, contracts, companies, all kinds of fun stuff, all in Wrestler Unstoppable. Shoot over to our Patreon page if you want to become a member of the Fro Wrestling Podcast family. We would love to have you. Go to patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast and become a Patreon member today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. This episode, we want to discuss everything that happened this week on Raw, on SmackDown, the pertinent topics. Of course, there's a lot going on in the news and rumors section, and as always, we are still hot and heavy into our Intercontinental Championship tournament. For our fantasy booking listeners out there who want to get involved, go to frowrestling.com and cast your votes today for round 3 of the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time tournament that we've got going on. We are down to our final 64 competitors, and there's some great matches. I apologize, I think they're down to 32 wrestlers. So some great matches going on. Can't wait to see what you guys do with that voting. I am doing everything I can to keep myself from looking at your votes early because I don't want to know until all the voting is over. As we go through the show, feel free to call into the Fro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160 and give us your questions, your comments, your concerns, anything you want us to talk about now, tonight, or if you don't get us while we're going live tonight, shoot your questions onto there anyways. It is our talk to text service. So you leave your message, it puts it up on my screen. If I don't get to your question, comment, concern, or whatever it is tonight, I will definitely include it in our next podcast episode. I like to get as many of your comments, your thoughts, and get you to be an active part of the show as often as I can. If you have not voted with us before, the direct link to the fan voting line for that tournament is frowrestling.com/fanvote. You can check that out as well. I want to go and get right into all the news and rumors going on in the world of professional wrestling. It's kind of a crazy week. SmackDown, for me, I am dying to see, and I was thrilled to have on tonight, because it's almost like a pay-per-view in and of itself. There's 2 clearly pay-per-view caliber matches on the card that was on the card tonight, and really got to get going with this SummerSlam thing. SummerSlam's only a few weeks away, and we really need to get these storylines solidified, and we need to see people really putting the full court press, the creative people, on generating interest in this pay-per-view. And, this is usually one of the big 4. You got WrestleMania is always the big one. If it was this is purely my opinion, I actually put the Royal Rumble after WrestleMania. I think anything that sets up the main event at WrestleMania should be held in that much prestige. Then SummerSlam, then Survivor Series. I would have switched that up a few years back. When Survivor Series was still traditional Survivor Series style matches, I would have much rather watched Survivor Series than the SummerSlam. But ever since they went away from that concept, whole concept, no need to. So we're gonna get started tonight with something from Sting. So Sting was in the news. He did his first live broadcast on Facebook the other day, doing that like FaceTime on Facebook kind of thing. And he gave out some really interesting information. He was throwing out there that he actually still can wrestle. Medically speaking, he can wrestle. It's just that he's not going to. He doesn't have an interest in doing that. Maybe it's because of the injury he suffered last time. Maybe it's because he doesn't think he wants to take the spotlight from some of the younger stars. But he does not seem to want to get into ring wrestle. I think if the opportunity presented itself for him to face The Undertaker at WrestleMania, like everybody wanted for so long, I think he may actually consider that. But now the thought process is, and this is what I have heard from various sources, is that if The Undertaker does come back one last time, it would not be to face Sting, it would be to face John Cena. I actually saw a meme posted on Facebook earlier today, and I couldn't agree with it more, that John Cena, I don't know if anybody remembers this or not, but when John Cena came out and did that whole his ruthless aggression thing when he first debuted with the company, immediately after he went and he took on Kurt Angle. He was in the back and he was confronted by The Undertaker. And The Undertaker extended him his hand. It was almost like a rite of passage thing. And I saw somebody posted up a meme. It was a picture of that handshake and then The Undertaker's coat and boots or gloves or whatever at the after WrestleMania. And it said, a relationship that started with a handshake should have ended with a handshake. And it had a picture of John Cena and The Undertaker, obviously computer edited at a WrestleMania. I couldn't agree with that more. I think that would be a great way to end The Undertaker's career. Don't get me wrong. If Sting and The Undertaker want to have a match at WrestleMania, I'm all for it. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. In the news, you get a few things that just they perk your interest. For me, some of them I don't understand why they made they're newsworthy. Kurt Hawkins this week. It was publicized really big that he broke a record this week. He has 100 consecutive losses since being in WWE. His last win came back in, I think somebody said November, against Apollo Crews, which doesn't say much for Apollo Crews back then. But Kurt Hawkins, 100 losses. That, to me, is pathetic. And I'm not knocking Kurt Hawkins. Kurt Hawkins, in my personal opinion, is actually a really talented worker. When he was working the independents, he was doing just fine. When he wrestled for WWE in the past, former tag team champion, he was partners with Zack Ryder, one of the Edge heads. He clearly has skills. But for whatever reason, since he returned, you would think WWE would want to maximize the product that they've got there, but for whatever reason, they're not. And it's somewhat frustrating, in my personal opinion. I would like to see Kurt Hawkins actually get a legitimate chance to be something. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but definitely something to keep our eye on. Terry Funk is in the news this week, which it's always good to see Terry Funk doing anything wrestling related, but the issue is not that he's doing anything wrestling related, it's that he's actually going to be wrestling. Terry Funk, at 73 years old, is coming back for big-time wrestling. He'll be teaming with the Rock and Roll Express on September 22nd in North Carolina. They're going to take on Jerry the King Lawler, which is awesome to see Funk and Lawler in the ring at the same time ever. The peripheral stuff, you're going to have Doug Gilbert there, who's the brother of the late Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, and Jerry Lawler's son, Brian Christopher. So, interesting six-man tag team match. I can't believe Terry Funk is still going. And for those people who are like long-term wrestling fans, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when the documentary, movie, drama thing came out, the Beyond the Mat thing, Terry Funk was in that, and that was right around the time Bret Hart was WWE champion. And they did this whole thing in the documentary about Terry Funk was wrestling his last match. He was going to wrestle Bret Hart in Texas. They did a whole thing with the guy who was going to be the referee who had worked with Terry for years and this and that. And he and Bret Hart went out and tore the house down, had a great match. And I remember in that documentary, they talked about how Terry Funk had no cartilage left in his knee. And that he should be in excruciating pain. And gosh, that you're talking about the mid-90s. So we're talking over 20 years later. So Terry was in his 50s then. And they were telling him very, very specifically, do not go back and wrestle again. This is not for you. This is not your thing anymore. And he's still doing it. This guy is just timeless. So, congrats to him. I actually hope the match makes it onto YouTube or something so I could check that out. It'd be very cool. Great Khali update. Apparently Khali's appearance at Battleground was a one and done, which I find completely humorous for a couple reasons. One, you fly the guy all the way here. He's got a training school back in his mother country where he's developing some great young recruits, and you pull him away from that for one night, which I suppose is okay, but the problem I have is, and this was actually talked about on the Edge and Christian podcast, the Great Khali, after choking out Randy Orton at Battleground and Jinder Mahal retaining the championship, Khali's the one who's holding up the world championship belt, almost making it look like he won the title. If you go to India right after that pay-per-view, that was the picture. It was going to be on the front page of every newspaper. That was going to be on their news programs. That was going to be on whatever their equivalent to ESPN is. And Jinder Mahal just has like this dumbfounded look on his face, like, dude, that's my belt. What are you doing? And now it comes out that Kali literally was a once and done. He helped him retain his championship in that Punjabi prison, that god-awful Punjabi prison match. For those who don't understand why I say it was god-awful, because the match itself was actually not too bad. The issue is that the Philadelphia crowd was completely dead, and they were dead for a reason. Because the prison, whatever you want to call it, structure itself was so poorly put together that it created an issue with the fans being able to see. You couldn't see what was going on. So, the people in attendance, how are they going to get behind the match? Not only that, but in Philadelphia, the night of that pay-per-view, they actually announced the Royal Rumble tickets were going on sale, and hundreds of people went out to buy the Royal Rumble tickets instead of worrying about the Battleground main event that they all knew who was going to win anyways. So, Paige was in the news this week. Always a good thing when Paige is in the news, because we are dying to see her get back in the ring, and they were really screwing people on Monday. Ahead of Raw going live, there was an interview segment, and while the interview segment was going on backstage, a female figure who really strongly resembled Paige came walking up a set of steps or whatever and crossed behind the person being interviewed, and it was very, very misleading. It made it look like Paige was there in her getup ready to wrestle Monday night. So there was a big speculation that Paige was returning to Raw, and unfortunately for the WWE Universe, that was not the case. Story did break saying that was not Paige, that was in fact Sasha Banks, and that they were doing a photo shoot for something related to zombies, which doesn't say much for Paige if everybody thinks that Paige looks like a zombie, but apparently that's all it was. But really, when you see the amount of reaction that the wrestling community had, just seeing something that looked like Paige going to Raw, that should send a huge signal to WWE that they need to do everything they can to fix that situation and bring her back to television, because obviously the fans would have been very excited to see that. Fightful.com, a website that does all sorts of various wrestling related things, published a article this week where they talked about the contracts out in the professional wrestling world and when they expire. And there was a whole bunch of them listed there, and I really couldn't care less about most of it, because most of it wasn't until late 2018, some 2019. I don't care about any of that. The ones that I want to discuss are, one, Prince Puma, also known as Ricochet. He has been, kind of held down by the Lucha Underground umbrella for quite a while. The contracts that Lucha Underground offer state that a wrestler cannot compete for another televised promotion for 90 days after the airing of whatever season the person participated in. So, Prince Puma appeared in Season 3, so he has to wait till the end of Season 3, and then 90 days after that. Well, Season 3 was recorded over a year ago, and it's only now being shown on El Rey Network. So he's allowed to work all these other promotions as long as they're not televised or not in the United States, and he could do that as Ricochet. But the Prince Puma character and any opportunity to work for Impact Wrestling, WWE, Ring of Honor, those things can't happen because he's under contract to Lucha Underground. So hopefully Season 3 should come to an end in September or so. When that happens, hopefully we'll get Prince Puma, also known as Ricochet, out of his Lucha Underground situation, and perhaps, possibly, finally, getting himself into a better situation and contract negotiation point where he could join a major promotion. Kenny Omega is the other one I wanted to talk about, because Kenny Omega's contract comes up in January 2018. Now, last year his contract was up, and there was lots of conversation about him going to WWE. This week alone, Stone Cold Steve Austin has been very vocal about Kenny Omega could be the next big thing in WWE. Many of the talents who speak on this topic think that Kenny Omega is the biggest get that WWE could possibly target. And it's not just WWE. If you're Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, all of them should be targeting him very, very heavily. His character is fresh, it's unique, it's different, and clearly from his matches with Okada, this guy can go. And he can go at a very high level. So, these situations where we're waiting for contracts to run out, a lot of them don't really matter. But the Kenny Omega contract, that's a huge one. That is a game-changing contract negotiation that could impact next year's WrestleMania if they play their cards right. That's another one of those things where I'd have him debut at the Royal Rumble. If you can get him in and you can get him signed, that's what I would do. It's something in the back of his mind. He wants a WrestleMania moment. Get him one, because he's that big of a draw right now on both the independent world and for any of the diehard wrestling fans out there. We all know who Kenny Omega is. Royal Rumble tickets, speaking of the Royal Rumble earlier, tickets sold out almost instantaneously when they went on sale to the general public. That is a huge indicator. I say this for a very basic reason. Battleground was just in Philadelphia. People were getting up and leaving early. They had no interest in the product. But the Royal Rumble, in the same night when their tickets start going on sale, it sells out immediately because the people expect a lot from the Royal Rumble. They couldn't care less about Battleground. Now, being in the Philadelphia market myself, I would like to see more pay-per-views in Philadelphia, but I understand why they don't do more, because they get the kind of reaction they got for Battleground. I would keep maybe Raw or SmackDown episodes in Philly. I would keep maybe the Royal Rumble, the big four potentially, for Philadelphia for pay-per-views, but I wouldn't do these side pay-per-views. The Philly fans, not as receptive to the silly side matches where you already know who's going to win every single match, which, by the way, this week, Ryback put out on his podcast that WWE purposely leaks information to the fans just to gauge fan interest. That sounds great because you're trying to find out what matches work and don't work. The problem with that is, you give away the spoilers to all your matches. Why the heck should anybody watch your show? You want to know why viewership's down? It's because we already know what's going to happen. We already know going into tonight's SmackDown episode, and I haven't even talked about SmackDown yet. I'm just talking about before SmackDown goes live. It was already announced online that Shinsuke Nakamura was going to face Jinder Mahal at SummerSlam. It wasn't announced by WWE. It was announced by every wrestling network that you could possibly find online. They all say the same thing. Nakamura's going to win tonight. Nakamura's going to win tonight. There's betting odds that indicate that Nakamura was going to win tonight. So it makes it so why tune in? Why watch SmackDown? I already know what's going to happen. I know that Kevin Owens is not going to win the United States Championship. I know he and Shane McMahon are going to have some kind of issue. I know that there's going to clearly be a match set up for SummerSlam of some kind. Now, the rumor was it was going to be Shane McMahon versus Kevin Owens, but it's a little different. We'll get to that a little later. But you see what I'm saying, though. The Royal Rumble is something you can't tell the people what's going to happen in the Rumble. You can't tell them what 30 different guys are going to do. And there's a huge amount of speculation that this year there will be a women's Royal Rumble, which I'm sure the Philly fans are dying to see. So I think that's one of the few pay-per-views that Philadelphia fans and fans in general really appreciate, because it's so much harder to give everything away. Yeah, you could talk about who the Rumble winner is going to be. I get that. But what you can't do is you can't tell us what action is going to happen in that ring when you got 30 different people to think about. The WWE United Kingdom division. So the UK division, they launch in January. They spent a ton of money launching the UK division. Made that beautiful championship belt. Had Tyler Bate win the championship. He ends up losing it at TakeOver to Pete Dunne. It's the matches that we've seen have been fantastic. You know what the problem is? WWE has no plan for the United Kingdom division. Nothing whatsoever. They don't want to spend money right now on new production, so they haven't started their weekly television program like they said they were going to do. They wanted to start doing some more of that in October, which is going to cost a ton of money to record 4, 5, 6 episodes at a shot. They don't apparently want to spend any money. And this all boils down to their stock investors, because their stockholders are not making enough money. Well, you know what? The stockholders sound great, but if we don't start buying your product, your stockholders get ticked off. You need to start giving us something interesting and new, and stop canceling our network shows, and the only thing you leave on there is stuff we've already seen. Bring us some new stuff. This week, the Edge and Christian show has been canceled on the WWE Network, even though they've already filmed an entire second season. In addition, the R-Truth show, which was all focused on video gaming, also canceled on the WWE Network this week. Very frustrating when a lot of people were really looking forward to seeing what they were going to do with that. I'm not a huge video gamer, but I was curious what they were going to do with R-Truth, and they were going to finally put him in a situation where he's doing something of any kind of value. Right now, I mean, he's worthless. You know, he's doing nothing on television at all. The big conversation of the week. John Jones defeats Daniel Cormier at UFC 214 and calls out Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar responds, "Be careful what you wish for." On Monday Night Raw, as we're going to get to in a little bit, there's some riffraff about Brock Lesnar. Now, in Vegas, the odds have already been set. The odds of John Jones actually fighting Brock Lesnar in the UFC before July 15th, 2018. That's the bet right now in Vegas. The odds are a minus 160 say yes, and a plus 120 say no. So, according to those betting odds, the odds are that Lesnar and John Jones do face off before July of next year. If the fight happens, the UFC light heavyweight champion, John Jones is a minus 350 favorite over Brock Lesnar right now, who is a plus 265. I understand that because he's one of the best light heavyweights in history. However, Brock Lesnar is going to be, when he gets in a ring for the UFC, he's going to be in there weighing in probably about 240, 250, jacked and ripped. Now, the problem is he kind of has a little bit of a glass jaw. So John Jones, if he can exploit that, I have no problem saying John Jones beats Brock Lesnar. But if Brock Lesnar can wrestle him to the ground, he's got some of the most lethal ground and pound ever in UFC. So it'll be a great fight to see. I support the thought that we are going to see that fight sooner rather than later. The question is when. There were people who hypothesized he could be in this December. There are others who say next March. Other people say not till next July. I'm hoping that it is in December, because I would like to see Brock Lesnar back for WrestleMania. I don't know if that'll happen with what they're doing on Raw. We'll talk about that in a few moments, but that's just my opinion. That's what I would like to see happen. One last tidbit on Kenny Omega. His first United States Championship defense, the IWGP US title, will be defended on October 15th at a Ring of Honor show. It's co-produced between Ring of Honor and New Japan. Now, they announced that earlier in the week, and then they printed a retraction saying, no, it's not definite that he's going to defend the title. He's going to defend the title. Even if he wasn't going to, he will now, just because they screwed up the press release. But that'll be his first defense. I'm not sure yet who he's going to take on. I think if they build it correctly, Kenny Omega could be facing Cody for the Ring of Honor Championship and the U.S. Championship all in one big, wonderful matchup. Speaking of people from New Japan Pro Wrestling, Tama Tonga, son of Haku, was having a whole Twitter fest back and forth conversation about his potential opportunities to go to World Wrestling Entertainment at some point. And people asked him, is WWE in your future? He said, or do you see WWE in your future? He says, no, they see me in theirs, implying that WWE really is going to want him, and I think he's right. I do. I love the work that he's doing in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think he's really doing a great job of honing his skills and getting himself U.S. ready, and you couldn't ask for a better trainer, his father, legendary Haku. So we'll have to see how that comes together, but he is signed in New Japan for quite a while still, so we're a few years away, I think, away from Tama Tonga making a jump to WWE. All right, it's time. Let's get to our Raw reflection. First, we're going to start with Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman interrupting Kurt Angle to kick off Raw. Here's the thing with this. Obviously, I've said this a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to go through every segment on Raw or SmackDown anymore, but I will give you my reflection on the pertinent issues. This here, Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman announcing that if Brock Lesnar loses the Universal Championship at SummerSlam, that he will leave WWE. I look at this in two different ways this could be played out. One, Brock Lesnar loses the Universal title at SummerSlam, and he goes on to fight John Jones in December. If they want to speed that process, if they want to expedite the process and get that fight going sooner rather than later, that's what I see happening. If not, if that fight with John Jones is going to be, put off for 6, 7, 8, 9 months, then I see Brock Lesnar retaining the championship until WrestleMania, where he'll drop it there, probably to Roman Reigns or someone of that nature, or Braun Strowman or somebody. And then we'll see Brock Lesnar face John Jones in, April, May, June, somewhere in that time frame. But I do like the banter about Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar leaving. I love that Paul Heyman got in Kurt Angle's face doing the whole cutting the promo and whatnot. I thought it was a good segment. The only thing I think would have made it better is if the competitors trying to become the champion actually came out and said something, told him to get out, or did the whole goodbye chant or something to just add some frustration to Brock. Brock was out there smiling the whole time. If you're Brock Lesnar, you got to be thrilled right now. You make $5-6 million a year working for WWE, and then you can go to UFC, and he's going to make $2 million if he fights John Jones. He's going to make big bucks. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. I think Brock Lesnar, I hate to say it, is probably his WWE days are numbered, at least in the short term, because I think he is going to make that last soiree back into UFC. Jason Jordan's angle, he and Kurt Angle, no pun intended. I don't know how to feel about this. I'm happy he's getting a shot at the Intercontinental Championship, because I think The Miz, for all he does to bring legitimacy to the Intercontinental Championship, I think at this point he's had it long enough that it's getting stale. It's getting boring. Now, historically speaking, when you combine all of his reigns with the Intercontinental Championship, it's pretty legendary. He's at the almost at the top of the food chain. But it's time for some fresh blood. on that Intercontinental Championship, and that is going to be Jason Jordan. My prediction early on SummerSlam is Jason Jordan will win the Intercontinental Championship from The Miz. I thought that Jason Jordan did a relatively good job on Raw, cutting his first singles promo of sorts. I love the suplex into the Miz Taraj that he put on the Miz at the end of the segment. I thought the Miz clearly outclassed him on the mic, though, which is one of the things the Miz does so well. If they build this right, this could be a really, really cool match for Jason Jordan. Congrats to him. He spent all that time on SmackDown. You guys have heard me on this podcast complain about how they didn't use American Alpha worth a darn, and now he's actually getting a shot. So kudos to Jason Jordan. The Hardys, very bizarre. They come out, they win their match. They attack the Revival, and then they get an interview segment in the back where they tease Awakening, which I don't know if that's their play on the broken characters, but I found it interesting that they were doing that, especially with Rebby Hardy coming out this week and blasting on Twitter that and other interview segments that she believes there will never be an agreement between Anthem Sports and the Hardys without going to court. She makes it very clear, at this point, the information is well documented, that her son, Maxwell, was never signed. They never signed a release for him, never got any compensation for him. He should not have appeared on television. Her father, same thing, no contract, no release forms. So that's a serious thing. That makes it look like Impact Wrestling exploited people without compensating them. Not a good thing, especially since they're filming their television at MGM Studios, which you don't want to hurt that relationship, which is something she pointed out. I think if push comes to shove and they go to court, I think the Hardys, in the past I've said the Hardys are shafted. There's no way. When you think about all those angles that Rebby was putting out, they may actually have a shot to get those intellectual properties away from Impact Wrestling. Because if you think about it, now that she's announced, hey, you never had permission to air this stuff, Impact Wrestling's never going to put those videos out because they don't have permission to have Maxwell or Senior out on television. So those matches mean nothing now if they don't let them have the gimmick. So we'll have to see how things work out there. The Seth and Dean Ambrose thing on Raw. You got them saving each other, and clearly they're building towards a tag team match. I love that Seth tried to face Sheamus and Cesaro on his own. Dean comes out to bail him out, and then he keeps playing his card where he's not trying to team up with Seth. He doesn't trust Seth. He was out there for different reasons. You put me in a no-win situation. If I didn't help you out, I'd look like a schmuck and that kind of stuff. Whatever. This is building to, obviously, the tag team title match that we've all been speculating on for SummerSlam. Good match. I'm happy to see it. Put some gold on Seth Rollins because he hasn't had any in far too long, and this way you don't have to mess with your world title or your Intercontinental title picture, and you give Dean Ambrose something to do because, honestly, I haven't liked his work lately at all, and this might give him enough fire to get interesting once again. The Enzo, Cass, and Big Show thing was very awkward to me. I mean, I know they're still looking at doing a match at SummerSlam between Cass and Show. I'd imagine that match will take place on the pre-show, the kickoff show. But the way it came off on Monday was bizarre. All the way up until the end when Big Show literally grabs Enzo by the hand and drags him out of the ring. But prior to that, it almost looked like you could set this up to be like a three-way dance or triple threat, or pick any terminology you want for it. And I actually would think that would be interesting, watching the two big guys going at it and Enzo just cruising around trying to stay away from everybody, watching these two big guys beat the snot out of each other, and then maybe he slips into the ring and picks up a quick easy pin win or something by a double knockout or something. Maybe Cass hits the boot while the Big Show hits the weapon of mass destruction, and then Enzo can pick up a quick win. I did not like hearing this week that Corey Graves was really trashing Enzo, making fun of his character being on and off screen as the same person. He brought up his incident on the European tour. I understand that these unscripted shows and comments and things like that are designed to generate interest, but man, you're throwing one of your wrestling brothers under the bus, and I didn't like that. Now, I do agree with his opinion. I don't know if anybody saw that he thinks Enzo should be in 205 Live, as is the case with Kalisto, and JBL was on as well, had the same opinion. I'm fine with that. I think you put Enzo on 205 Live and put him against Neville, you instantly make that show must-see TV, which it's not right now. It's god-awful right now. So I hope they do that. But I didn't like hearing it from Corey Graves. I thought that was pretty classless. Moving on to SmackDown, the SmackDown Breakdown. So we've kicked off the show with the United States Championship match between AJ Styles and Kevin Owens. Quick roll-up victory for AJ Styles. We all knew he was going to win. And then, of course, Kevin Owens is blowing up and he gets in Shane McMahon's face. So now here's the thing. Heading into this episode of SmackDown, the big rumor going around is that Shane McMahon was going to take on Kevin Owens at SummerSlam. Well, flip the script, that's not happening. Instead, they make a rematch for SummerSlam between Kevin Owens and AJ Styles because Owens' shoulder was off the mat during the pin, and the special guest referee will be Shane McMahon. So, long-term booking, I think this is actually fantastic because you get one more mat classic between AJ Styles and Kevin Owens, and you postpone the need to have to do the Shane McMahon match, which I think you can hold off until Survivor Series if you play your cards right. That or it'll be on one of the brand-specific pay-per-views. I don't like that idea. The only reason I might want to do it before Survivor Series is if you want to save Kevin Owens for potentially a cross-promotion or cross-branded traditional Survivor Series match. I'd be okay doing it beforehand for that. I heard they're bringing back Taboo Tuesday, so put that on Taboo Tuesday or something, but we'll have to wait and see. I was actually very intrigued on SmackDown seeing Aiden English in the Sami Zayn match, because Aiden English picked up the win clean. Now, I don't know what they're doing with Sami Zayn, because they're absolutely destroying his character and his career. But I actually love what they're doing with Aiden English. He now has wins over Ty Dillinger and Sami Zayn. I know they're nonsense wins and they're nothing fabulous, but they're still wins. And wins and losses, contrary to Road Dogg's opinion, actually do matter to the fans. Because now people are starting to like Aiden English just a little bit. Even though he's the heel, they like it. They like to see somebody different get a win. Put the guy in 205 Live. Let that guy go in there and tear it up. They're not going to do that because he's on SmackDown. But if I was booking, he would be in 205 Live tomorrow. Rusev, his segment this week, I actually thought they might have given Chad Gable the win over Rusev. They did not. They had a good match, solid match. Rusev picks up the win, but the more important thing is after the match, Rusev is looking for competition, and he's begging for somebody at SummerSlam, and here comes Randy Orton to answer the challenge. Now, the only issue I have is Orton gets choked out at Battleground, and the modern-day Maharaja is talking about how he has destroyed the legend of Randy Orton. And then Randy Orton doesn't even respond. He just comes out and challenges Rusev. He's like, yeah, okay, I suck. Let me go fight the next guy. I hated it. Hated the way that goes down. There should have been something. There should have been, after the Battleground pay-per-view, Randy Orton should have hit. There's one more RKO on him just to end the feud or something. RKO through the table and then have Rusev attack him and transition it that way. The way they did it made Randy Orton look weak, but I'm actually excited to see him take on Rusev. It's a match I don't think has ever happened. It's one that is very fresh, and that's hard to say with Randy Orton because he's been out there for, I hate to say he's been out there so long. He's actually a really young guy because he started so young, but he's been out there for quite a while. He's already a Hall of Famer. He's only in his 30s. So, but I'll be excited to see he and Rusev at SummerSlam. Should be a great matchup. And the main event at SmackDown, John Cena taking on Shinsuke Nakamura, the winner going on to face Jinder Mahal at SummerSlam for the WWE Championship. And this match did not disappoint. Fantastic back and forth action, tons of in and out of the ring stuff, and at the end, you get to see Nakamura hits the running knee, and John Cena hits a couple AAs, goes for another one, and Nakamura hits a power bomb, and then hits his finisher and picks up the win. And as everybody reading any wrestling dirt sheet all day knew, Shinsuke Nakamura will challenge Jinder Mahal for the WWE Championship at SummerSlam. We saw that coming. It is what it is, but I still am pretty jazzed for it. Now, the thing is, I actually expect Jinder Mahal to retain. He's going to get that long championship run, probably all the way to Royal Rumble at this point, which is what we hypothesized originally. Unless he really isn't drawing as well as WWE thought in that case. And there have been reports of that being the case. But if that happens, then potentially they take it off him early. I can't see them putting the title on Nakamura yet, though. Unless you're going to give it to Nakamura and have him hold all the way to Mania and then face AJ Styles at Mania. But we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But the match itself, Cena and Nakamura, did not disappoint for the first one. If they had more time to go, would have been even better. That's one I would love to see at a WrestleMania someday, where they really just give them tons and tons of time, because it's well worth the watch. Please make sure, if you have not already, drop us a line on the Fro Wrestling Sound Off line. If you don't have the number, it's 267-642-1160. It's our talk to text service, so you can send us anything you want us to cover in our episodes. Make sure, if you have not already, go to frowrestling.com and cast your vote in our greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time tournament. We took every Intercontinental Champion that there has been, bracketed them out, put them into a tournament, and you guys are picking the winners. Your fantasy booking. I have nothing to do with it. I have not cast one vote. I don't believe in that. I want you guys to be the ones who control where this goes, and the matches in this round are fantastic, and I can't even imagine what the next round is going to be, because I don't really look at this stuff before I put all the names down, and I don't really bracket it out too much ahead of time. You know, I made sure that Curtis Axel, if he won his opening match against Ryback, who I thought was funny because they were former tag team partners, that he would wrestle his dad. So I do a little bit of that stuff when I was setting it up, but I didn't really look all the way down the line because I like to be surprised just like you guys. Not to mention, I can't really predict what you guys are going to pick anyways. So it was very cool to see how you guys progress every tournament that we've done. I've already got our next tournament idea is in the works when this one's over, because you guys seem to have a lot of fun with these tournaments, and I'm very thrilled to bring them to you. Shoot over, if you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, by all means, shoot over to patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. We would love to have you as a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, give you shout outs on our episodes, and just get you guys involved. And, you know, if you're one of our top contributors for the month, you're going to get the opportunity to host an episode of Goin Live at 9:05 on Saturday nights with me, which would be very cool. We'll give you a phone number, we'll get you called in, we'll get you dialed in, we'll give you the run sheet ahead of time so you know exactly what we're going to talk about, and then get your input on all the hottest topics in the world of professional wrestling. You guys get to be a part of the show, and I love doing that. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next time. We'll run down all the news and rumors in the world of professional wrestling. As always, special thanks to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects that we use in our shows. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the tab in the middle of the page. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you have needs in the world of higher education or employment, be sure to shoot over to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your educational needs, whether it's college, university, or just you want to try a new career path and see what's out there. Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. And if you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to tsjsports.com for the latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. Until next episode, everybody take care, and I will see you later.